Hello and welcome to another night show. Tonight was Jerry's night, but I don't see no Jerry. So anyhow, with that being said, Jerry's not here at the moment, so not much I can do about that. A little worried about the guy. You know, he's handicapped and on his own, and I'm just hoping something bad hasn't happened to him. So that sort of sticks with me. But I do have somebody who here has actually come on and helped me out a little bit tonight, and I actually really appreciate him for that. And that's Kevin. Hello, Kevin.
Hey, what's going on?
Yep. So I don't know. You got a little bit of static there in the background, Kevin.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know about. I don't know what it is. I'm just letting you know.
Okay. Well, I get myself though.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe volume may be a little high too if you're hearing yourself. Try turning Skype's volume down a little bit on your side. But anyhow, I guess there's only one thing I really wanted to talk about, and then I'm going to let Kevin here as long as he can do it, because he's got a very interesting topic he's talked with me about that would definitely be interesting to hear more about. So anyhow, the topic I was going to talk about here for a couple minutes was actually pretty simple. Okay, you know, there's a person up on YouTube, like always, claims to be a truther, calls himself Truth Seeker. Yep. And he appears to be a money seeker, a tool seeker, not a truth seeker. Okay? And that's actually the kind of stuff that just annoys the hell out of me because, you know, he posted up a video that's current that was just put up yesterday, and he's got two stories in it. But the funny thing about the stories is even though they're true and they happened, the first story is from 2015, the second story is from 2016. And he leaves no links to the original stories, no nothing. Everything goes to his webpage, goes back to himself. And of course, he's asking for donations. So this is all I need to see to know what he's here for. He's not about truth. He's about making the tool, money, money, money. And he's going to report this stuff like it's current news when it's not current news. So yeah, that sort of right there just sort of tells me who he is, and it's sort of sad because my feelings are simple about stuff like that. When you're going to claim that you want the truth and show stuff that is truth, at least you could do is be honest about it, stay current. And when it comes to having to have the tool for something that's going to affect your life too, so you mean you can't go out there and you can't willingly on your own, from your own heart, do the right thing to try to let people know what's going on, because this is going to eventually affect your own life as well if it's not stopped. One of them was about rainwater, speaking of rainwater, and how this guy got in trouble and put in jail for collecting rainwater. Okay, well, you know, rainwater, water that goes through your own property, whether it's a stream or a creek, don't belong to society. It don't belong to one individual or two individuals or a family who decides they want to own all the water rights.
Yeah.
You know, so but the thing there is with that being the true case that is going on in society, that's something that's going to affect you too if you don't try to put a stop to this. So you need to, if you're trying to let people or bring awareness to people what's going on, and you got to do it for money, that's messed up, okay? And the other one was a guy who had a small wind turbine. It's not these big industrial windmills you see for electricity. It's a small one for his own personal property that he owned. And he went to jail for having it because I guess the greedy corporations, the electric companies, need his money more than he can have his own because they don't want him off the grid. And see, and this is both topics that when you got anybody doing stuff like this and law enforcement backing something like that and putting you in jail for something like that, that is corruption to the tilt, and that's going to affect every human being on this planet if somebody don't step up to it. But here, this guy, he has to have the tool. He has to have money. He has to have money in order to just bring awareness, and then he has to use old stories. Pretty pathetic. So yeah, Kevin, you sound a lot clearer now. So, but Kevin has a pretty interesting topic that I've talked about a little bit with him, and so I'm going to let Kevin carry on, and then him and I'll talk.
Uh, all right. Yeah, I'm still hearing myself echoing it back. Okay, no, I don't. All right. Can you hear me?
I hear you just fine. You're loud and clear.
All right. Yeah, this is yeah. What I'm about to read is a book called Ubuntu Contributionism, a blueprint for human prosperity and exposing the global banking fraud by Michael Tellinger. And all right, I'll read the first part here. This is like Warren's night, only it's me. All right, there we go. A bright light at the end of a dark and gloomy tunnel. Every morning, billions of people get up to start their daily chores. A large percentage hate their jobs. They hate their boss. They have to travel to their lousy jobs for hours on the bus or train or bicycle or walk in the rain, the snow, the heat, or sit in the bumper to bumper traffic for hours. Why do all these people repeat this insanity every day? To earn money. You know, the tool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so, so that they can buy bread and milk and clothing, to pay electricity and send their children to school and somehow make it to the end of the month and then start the madness all over again. On a planet of 7 billion people, the majority of us live in poverty and in a state of quiet desperation, waiting for some kind of miracle to deliver us from the harsh economic times. Millions dream of fame and fortune, which can be seen in the endless number of reality television shows offering exactly that. People are searching for any kind of salvation, often choosing the wrong kind that only leads to more misery. We watch the news and see a world filled with injustice, crime, and war, and we desperately search for relief, personal suffering. Most of us realize that there is something dramatically wrong with this situation. It's as if our society is terminally ill. But how can we cure this human disease if we do not know what the cause of our human disease is? Until we know what lies behind the human struggle and suffering, we will never eliminate the cause, but blindly continue to treat the symptoms. Sound familiar?
Oh, it sure does.
Over and over again. You know, our ignorance will remain our weakness, while the simple solutions glaringly stare us in the face with the rising of every sun. The so-called American dream remains a dream because we are all asleep. That's a good one.
Oh, that's so true. That is so true.
You know, cunningly deceived by those who run the world. The same dream is sold to us as lingering and perpetual hope, and millions of people around this planet hope on a daily basis that things will get better. But hoping and waiting will get us nowhere. Ubuntu contributionism presents us with the opportunity to embrace a new reality on our planet with unimaginable prosperity for all its inhabitants, in perfect harmony with all of nature and Mother Earth. It is truly a bright light at the end of a tunnel, at the end of a dark and gloomy tunnel. I tend to go very fast. You know, I'll read it again. It is truly a bright light at the end of a dark and gloomy tunnel of quiet desperation and misery shared by most of the people on this beautiful planet. Now, the Ubuntu contribution system is a blueprint for a new social structure in which everyone is absolutely free and equal, a society that functions without the concept of money, any form of barter or trade, or the attachment of value to material things. A culture where each individual is encouraged to follow their passion and contribute their natural talents or acquired skills to the greater benefit of all the people in their community. Where everyone can choose to live anywhere and nobody is forced to do anything against their will. A society with a new set of laws based on the needs of the people, where everything is provided to everyone because they contribute their labor of love. A world where there are no jobs, careers, corporations, unemployment, homelessness, or hunger. A society which promotes the highest levels of scientific and technological exploration because there are no financial restrictions. A society in which arts and culture flourish, allowing people to experience life to the fullest. A society in which spiritual growth of its people through the explosion of arts and culture will allow the rapid rise of consciousness to fully embrace the concepts of unity. A system that provides unimaginable abundance of all things on all levels, almost impossible to imagine by those trapped in the capitalist, consumer driven environment of today. Now, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Well, this is something that, in a way, is something that I've been speaking about for a long time. I haven't come up with a neat plan like what you're reading here, but I've always, I've always felt that our world is the way it is because of we, the people, obviously, and greed, the tool. And if we want a world that's fair for everybody, then it has to be equal on an equal basis and fair to everybody. You can't have somebody above somebody else. Everybody
Exactly.
is a human being. You can't be above somebody else. So what Kevin's reading here, oh my God, it's so what I feel inside, and I've always felt inside. So Kevin's actually come upon a book and come upon something here I didn't know was out there. There's off.
Yeah, I got to meet this Michael Tandra guy in person. I attended his lecture this past June, and got to shake his hand and all that stuff. And he presented some pretty neat stuff there. But yeah, all right, let's continue. This is our planet, right?
Yeah, well, it's died a couple of times. I mean, we've had the end of the world about 3 times already, but it still looks the same. So we'll go
Oh,
on.
that's right. The world was supposed to end a week ago today. Yeah.
Yeah, I know, and we're still here. I don't know how it happens that we end the world. We're still here, but okay.
Yeah. Anyway, this is our planet, Mother Earth, our home in the universe. The only reason we are alive and can exist on this beautiful planet is because she has somehow managed to dish up the perfect set of circumstances that has allowed us to exist here. If you were lost in space and someone asked you, "Where are you from?" you would turn around and point at this spectacular planet and say, "I am from Earth, that planet right there." You would most likely not say, "I am from the USA or Japan or Australia or blah 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 blah." You um, from a distance, Earth looks so beautiful and peaceful and wholesome and united, and yet, as we get closer, we begin to see the great divisions that have been forced on the beings that inhabit this planet. From the day we were born, we are divided on so many different levels and in so many ways that we don't even recognize our own division anymore. Holy shit.
Oh man, that is so true.
Yeah. We are divided by country, flag, province, religion, city, state, continent, what car we drive, what job we have, what school we go to, what sport we follow, brand of clothing, credit card, what beer we drink, what music we listen to, how much money we have. The division is endless. Think about it. We live in apartments. Get it?
That's right, we do. A part of one another, separate, but so that is.
Yeah. It is through this division that we allow ourselves to be manipulated and controlled beyond our wildest imagination. Without most of us realizing it, the divide and conquer principle has been successfully implemented on our planet and is being used very effectively to keep us under control and in a perpetual state of conflict. Now, born free but imprisoned on our own planet. We are all born free on our planet, and yet we cannot move around freely. We cannot live where we choose to. We have to follow rules and laws that we did not agree to. We have to work to earn money, and we have to pay taxes to some authority that we know nothing about. We all know. We all know. All we know is that if we do not abide by these rules, we will be at odds with the system and possibly end up in court and quite possibly go to a place called jail. We only realize how enslaved we are when we try to challenge the system or extricate ourselves from it. None of us agreed to any of these rules and restrictions before we were born or at any stage after we were born, especially not in those first few minutes after we emerged from our mother's womb as free human beings. We entered this world without any commitments to anyone, without agreeing to rules that limit our freedom, without agreements, no contracts, no submission to anyone or anything. We entered this world free in every respect. While we honestly believe that we are born free, we are all in fact born into a lifelong slavery and servitude to a system that has been imposed on us for thousands of years. It is at that critical moment when we are born that our parents sign away all our rights and hand us over as property by our respective governments by signing what is known as a birth certificate. By doing so, our parents unwittingly and innocently change our status from free human to that of citizen and property of the state. And so begins a life filled with lies and deception so deep and so severe that most of us have simply chosen not to believe it because the consequences of such allegations being true are simply too horrific for most people to deal with. But these are the cold, harsh facts. We all have to face and decide what we're going to do about it. And just as children that were born into slavery in the southern USA or ancient Egypt, we have to face facts at some stage of our lives. We, as humanity, have to face these facts and realize that the entire planet is a giant slave camp, not just some people or countries of the past. Any comments?
Oh, well, what he's talking about there, or what this book is talking about, is it couldn't be any more correct because that's exactly what it is. You're born into this world, the certificate, just like he talked about, and you're put into a world of enslavement and division. Oh my God, you couldn't even go through the list of division. I don't think in 2 hours on the show because that's how much division there is.
Oh yeah. All right. Lessons from history. Every social political system we have ever had as the human race has failed us dramatically. Humans everywhere live in misery. There seems to be no happy outcome to the political and economic mess on our planet. Every year, every month, every week it gets worse. We have to wake up earlier, work longer, and work harder to survive. There is more poverty, more hunger, more homelessness, more despair than ever before. Life has become too unbearable for too many to make sense of any anymore. Make sense of anymore. Okay. Millions are drowning in debt, suffer marital problems. Oh, gee, sound familiar?
Oh, yeah, that sort of fits, doesn't it? It sort of fits
Yeah.
my life pretty well right now. Yep.
Yeah. Suffer marital problems and often look to antidepressants or other addictive substances just to get through the day. The fact is that exploitation does not discriminate. The daily reports of financial doom and gloom are clear signs that the system cannot continue like this much longer. The whole world is on the verge of a devastating economic meltdown with catastrophic results. The global economy and natural resources have been plundered by reckless and ignorant politicians with no accountability to the people they are supposed to serve. But somehow this thing called an economy keeps growing and keeps us growing against all odds. Yeah, against all odds and against the predictions of many experts. How is this possible? Who or what is propping up the global economy and preventing it from imploding? Now, hunger on a planet of abundance. On a planet with over 7 billion people, I think it's like 8 right now, but whatever. More than half of us live below the breadline, surviving from day to day. According to the Guardian newspaper, 12th of May 2011, the United Nations announced that 1/3 of the world's food goes to waste every year. 1.3 billion tons of food is discarded, not because there's no one to eat it, but because people do not have the money to buy the food. And so thousands of people die of starvation every day, and billions more go hungry for lack of money or any other means to care for themselves. If ever there was an example of deep division between the haves and the have nots, this is it. If we think that the authorities are going to do something about it, we are grossly mistaken. It is the authorities that are squarely behind this manipulation of people's lives. This is where it starts to get complicated for the average person who believes that the government is doing what it can to help us. Nothing could be further from the truth. So let me be very clear on this. The government is not your friend. Our governments have allowed giant agricultural corporations like Monsanto, DuPont, and others to slowly take control of the global food supply. These giant multi-billion dollar corporations have thousands of patents on genetically modified seeds, and they are rapidly replacing all of our natural seeds with their genetically modified organisms. Many of their seeds are sterile and cannot regenerate themselves, leaving Monsanto and alike in control of seed and food supply to the world. And those who control the money and the food control the world. It is almost impossible to get natural food on any supermarket shelf anymore. Most of the products are genetically modified with uncertain effects on the human population. In some countries and states, it is now illegal to grow your own food, thanks to new bogus laws and bylaws instigated by these corporations to take more of a stranglehold on people everywhere. Although there are some countries like Brazil that have stood up against Monsanto, this inhumane activity is supported by our governments. In the USA, a large group of around 300,000 organic farmers filed a lawsuit against Monsanto, who have in recent years squashed independent organic farms from coast to coast. The global farming community is under full onslaught by these GMO giants who are out to take control of all the farms and global food supply. DuPont have contracted hundreds of retired law enforcement officers to patrol farms in the U.S. to seek out any potential intellectual property theft. As a result, thousands of farmers in the USA and around the world have lost their farms to the extortion tactics of these giant corporations, and any farmers caught with patented crops growing on their land are prosecuted. In most cases, the farmers do not have the funds to defend themselves against the most powerful corporations in the world and lose their farms to the corporation. And so, the silent war against humanity continues right under our noses. And most of us are simply too ignorant, too gullible, or too busy to see it. The war on our food supply is just one of many endeavors across many sectors to keep humanity under control, keep falling for the lies and deceptions of our politicians. We believe that the government is our friend and that they would not allow nasty corporations to harm us. But unfortunately for ignorant humans, nothing could be further from the truth, but something has to give. All right, any thoughts?
Yeah, well, I got some things I can add to that. Everything that this guy is saying in this book that Kevin is reading to you is so correct, and I can back that up a little bit for you. What's going on with the war on the farmers? Willie Nelson, the country singer, he has stepped up to the plate many years ago, and he has fought against the exact thing that is being said in this book. And I can tell you some things right now that is very true. If you get into heavy corporations, okay, I'll give you an example. In the United States, we have some clubs that are around the United States that are fancy clubs with golf courses and blah, 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 like the Elks Club or the Country Club. And these are mostly rich people go here, dine here, and blah, blah, blah. But I've worked for these places before when I was younger, and I'm going to give you an example. Let's say they were serving lasagna, just for an example, and they picked these big, huge restaurant-style commercial pans full of lasagna, one right after another, and they come in at 5 in the morning and they start cooking this stuff, and they cook pan after pan after pan all day long, and they got these steam tables, and they got it all set up, and they serve maybe 800 or 1,000 people. At the end of the night, when it's time to clean up, they have 8 pans of lasagna left, full pans. Nothing wrong with it. Brand new, it was just fixed that day. And you got all these homeless people out there that need food, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're not taking this food, they're not donating to nobody, they're not giving it to some charity or Salvation Army for the homeless or anything like that. The dishwasher is instructed to pour it down the garbage disposal pan by pan. It's thrown away to waste because they're not going to make a buck off of it, and they're not going to give it to anybody to help out. That's one example. The other examples is if you have your supermarkets or your stores like Target and all of your other stores out here that sell products that you might buy for your children or clothing or what have you. Well, any product that they don't sell and they can't sell, once it's become out of fashion, out of design, what have you, they don't donate this stuff. They won't donate it to for homeless people, homeless families, or children. No, they will spray paint it, cut it up, tear it up, take a hammer, smash it, break it, do what they got to destroy it. Some places will even lock their dumpsters down and give their trash companies specific keys so that it goes to landfill, so that it never goes to the public, all because they don't want to lose a buck off it, even though they're going to get a tax write off at the end of the year. So if anybody wants to try to say what Kevin is reading here is not true, you clearly ain't awake and don't know what you're talking about because it's so true.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's amazing, man. We produce all this food and stuff, and at the end of the day, of the day, yeah, it gets thrown out. It doesn't get sent to people who are in need of it, all because they don't have the money, the tools. I mean, it's just
Exactly.
ridiculous.
Exactly.
All right, continuing on. Waking up to the terrible truth. The system is fundamentally flawed, and it is not sustainable for very much longer on a planet with a rapidly rising consciousness. It is this rise in global consciousness and rapid awakening taking place among humanity that has become our saving grace. People everywhere are waking up to the fact that the system is broken, it cannot be fixed, there is no remedy for the current crisis, there is no happy outcome to the money driven system that we have all been lured into by our leaders and the banking elite. Imagine a complex mathematical equation in 1,000 parts. At the end of it, you realize that the final outcome is incorrect. It is no use fixing step 999 if that is not the root of the problem, nor can you fix that step 950 or even at step 500. In the case of our planet, the problem occurs at step 1, the fundamental basics of the global monetary system. But if we want to find a true and lasting solution, we have to truly comprehend the cause of our demise. We have to be brave enough to face the terrible truth of our past and the road that brought us here. And so we have to ask, how did it get so bad? How do we get to this point of degradation on a planet that is perfectly balanced with its natural order of things? Why has humanity become the virus that is causing the demise of its own host? By now, many people have heard the term Illuminati, and some are not quite sure what it means or who these people are. They have been called many names over the years. What we need to realize is that this group of secretive and very powerful people have been at this for a very, very long time. The conspiracy to control the world is not something that happened a few decades ago or a few hundred years ago. This manipulation of the human race goes back thousands of years to the very murky beginnings of what is often called the rise of civilization. This is where we find the first written evidence of global elite that took control of our world. All right. Not sure if I should go here, but
What? Is it controversial? Go ahead.
well, this one may be a little bit out there, even for you. But you want me to go through this anyway, or?
Oh yeah.
All right. Ancient origins of royal bloodlines and global control. The Sumerian tablets are the oldest written and deciphered record of human history. Millions of clay tablets have been collected in the Middle East and Near East, mainly in places like Iraq. This used to be the ancient land of milk and honey known as Mesopotamia. That also contained the Babylonian Empire. Thousands upon thousands of these clay tablets are inscribed with what is called cuneiform style of writing. I've never heard that word. Form style of writing. has been deciphered with some startling information about our distant past. One of the most chilling pieces of information we receive is from a clay tablet known as the King's List. It gives us critical information about our ancient past, which includes the name of many kings who ruled the world. They ruled and where they ruled and how long they ruled. It also tells the story of and the relationship between the kings and the gods of the time that were both worshipped and feared. But the most important revelation it makes is the explanation of how kingdoms and kings were created on earth. In the days when kingdom was lowered to earth from heaven and the gods appointed kings from among the men to rule over the humans, many have speculated as to the mysterious origins of kingdoms and how individuals suddenly became kings and among all the humans. This translation provides us with the oldest reference to royal bloodlines and the mysterious origins of priest kings and their kingdoms in ancient times on planet Earth. It clearly tells us that there was a time when kings were suddenly appointed by the entities called the gods. These early priest kings were given special knowledge, powers, and weapons to be able to control their subjects. This is the rise of the royal bloodline that continue to rule the world today. Most of us never give these matters any thought at all because we think of our royalty going back to a few hundred years before it gets all too confusing and we lose interest. Once again, this ignorance among humans is used against us because once we discover this ancient mystery, we uncover the clues to help us free ourselves from thousands of years of servitude. The worshipping of royalty is alive and well in the 21st century in England, where millions of people are obsessed with the Queen. They hang on her every word, follow her around, go to all her public appearances, buy memorabilia with the Queen's face on it, and idolize her for no apparent reason other than that it has been bred into the human subconsciousness to worship royalty. Okay, this is not as out there as I thought. I thought it was something else, but 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 it's starting to sound like Warren stuff, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it is sound like Warren stuff, but see, there's a lot of truth in the stuff that Warren is actually reading, just like what you got here.
Yeah. All right. Origins of money. One of the first things these ancient priest kings did when they took control of the people was to introduce a thing called money. Money did not evolve from thousands of years of barter and trade as we are led to believe. That is mere disinformation aimed at keeping us in the dark and in servitude to money itself. Because if we believe that money is somehow linked to the evolution of humanity, we will believe that money was part of a natural process of evolution accompanying us as a species to where we are today. This is one of the reasons we falsely believe that we simply cannot do without money. Because according to our historians, money makes the world go round. That is not true. Money was maliciously introduced to the human race as a tool of enslavement by the earliest kings thousands of years ago. Money appeared Money appeared suddenly out of the blue, just like the written language of the Sumerians. In his excellent documentary, The Ascent of Money, Professor Neil Ferguson of Harvard University tells us that the earliest money found to date was in the form of clay tablets that served as tokens of exchange and payment for goods and services. They had a variety of descriptions inscribed on them to indicate the goods or transaction in question. In essence, it was the first known form of money or promise, promissory notes, which is exactly what our paper money has become in later years. But today, our paper money is mere paper with some logos and numbers on it with no value other than the value that the people ascribe to it. What we use, we use what is called fiat money with no intrinsic value whatsoever, completely controlled by the bankers. But in those ancient times, only the royalty and the elite were literate, and only the scribes who were appointed by the priest kings could inscribe the tablets. And because all the written tablets were commissioned by the kings, including the money, we can trace control of the supply of money going back thousands of years as it continues to be controlled by the elite today. Wow, any thoughts about that?
Well, that's the big issue right there is the tool. The
Yep.
tool. Everybody's so dependent on that tool, and they think that tool is their survival. because they've been led to believe that that is the survival when actually that tool is not a survival. That tool is what's keeping you enslaved.
Yeah. All right. Empire of the elite bankers. The creation and supply of money lines in the hands of a few families, named mainly the Rothschild, Rockefeller, Morgan, Carnegie, Harriman, Schiff, Warburg, and a handful of others. These incredibly powerful families control the entire planet's money supply. They have the right to print and distribute money without restriction. Their rights are protected by the current governments of the world and the military might that upholds the governments. These are further supported by the laws that are made by the governments and the courts that uphold such laws. All of this activity is kept nice and tidy under control of the banking elite, who in turn keep the governments in power. It is a system so skillfully crafted that we have to admire its architects to keep us in the dark for so long. But now that we have figured out that we are mere pawns in a huge game of global slavery, it is time for change. Within a few short years after being born free as living, breathing human beings on our planet, each one of us is absorbed into brainwashing camps, which are conveniently called schools, to begin a process of induction into the matrix system by a process they conveniently call education. It has become such a twisted and convoluted system that the average person simply cannot comprehend the sheer scale of the deception. And when they are confronted by it, they simply discard it or deny it because the truth is simply too horrible to face. Many of us believe that we are free and that we have choice and free will. These are mere illusions we were granted to make us believe that we are free and that we have rights. We are bombarded by the media with slogans like human rights, Bill of Rights, liberties, democracy, majority rule, freedom, and so on. Unfortunately, the opposite is true, because what we believe to be our free will is just a cleverly disguised set of options which will guarantee a predetermined outcome for those pulling the strings. We don't have choices either. We have selections, which are also predetermined, like a Big Mac or a cheeseburger. Our selection is limited. Choice is infinite. The choices we are presented with give us the illusion that we are participants in shaping our future and that we can make a difference. Unfortunately, this is just an illusion because all the choices we make remain inside the slave system. To make a true difference, we have to see the system as a whole and recognize that it has been designed for only one thing, for one thing only, slavery. We choose Democrats or Republicans or who both operate within the same system. They are no different. This is just misconception that keeps us exactly where we are, because none are more enslaved than those who believe they are free, as was clearly outlined by a German poet and philosopher, Johann Wolfgang Goethe. I can't pronounce that last name. Yeah. But the human ego seems to be insatiable. It feeds the arrogance in so many of us to do inhumane things. Such behavior is commonly boosted by social status and the acquisition of wealth that keeps the hierarchy and separation alive among humanity. The ones who have bought into the deception and never-ending lies are often the ones who will fight to protect it. When we are told about the American dream, it is exactly that, a dream of freedom that we can never attain under the current system, and so ignites the conflict among friends and brothers, driven by ego and patriotism. It is our duty not to fight those who oppose us, but to rather show them another way, a way of cooperation instead of conflict that will benefit all of humanity and not only a chosen few. All right, any thoughts?
Well, that's exactly it. But the problem comes is just like what they're talking about there. People are so horrified about it, so horrified, and they don't want to believe that they've been lied to their whole life, and so they go on cooperating and they fight for their own enslavement. It's like, how dare you try to free me? That's what it's like. How dare you try to free me? Can't you tell I'm a happy slave?
Yeah, I mean, all right. Let's see here. I think I'll skip this part. Uh, all right, I'll start. All right, I'll start here. Wars are controlled by the bankers. Wars are started by kings, queens, politicians, and religious leaders backing a corporate agenda, not people. People have been the cause of many uprisings and revolutions, but those are generally against the oppressive regimes where the intent never seems to be war but freedom. The freedom that the politicians keep promising the people yet never deliver. And so we come face to face with some of the pivotal historic events of the past few centuries only to face the sobering realization that the bankers have been manipulating all of it for their own benefit. One of the founding fathers of the USA, Benjamin Franklin, stated that the refusal of King George III to allow the colonies to operate an honest money system, which freed the ordinary man from the clutches of the money manipulators, was probably the prime cause of the revolution. And so the American Revolution exploded primarily over the Currency Act of King George III, which forced the colonies to conduct their business by using printed banknotes borrowed from the privately owned Bank of England at interest. After the Revolution, the new United States adopted a very different economic system in which the government issued its own money so that private banks like the Bank of England were not siphoning off the wealth of the people through interest bearing banknotes. Both the French and Russian revolutions were a response by the people against the oppression of by royalty, the state of poverty, and the control of money. The first Bank of the United States was set up in 1791 as the first private central bank in the USA by the Rothschilds banking family. It was at this time that we start reading the spine-chilling statements by the bankers and other industrialists regarding their global perspective. The patriarch of the Rothschild empire at the time, Mayer Amschel or Rothschild, made his intentions clear with his infamous "Let me issue and control a nation's money, and I care not who makes the laws." You've heard that one before, have you?
Oh yes, yes, it's a famous statement that is so true.
20 years after the launch of the first private central bank, the U.S. Congress refused to renew the charter and voiced their intention to go back to a state-issued value-based currency on which the people paid no interest to any banker. Once again, we see the level of influence by the bankers on global political affairs when Nathan Mayer Rothschild issued a blatant threat against the U.S. government. Either the application for renewal of the charter is granted, or the United States will find itself involved in a most disastrous war. After a resolute U.S. Congress still refused to renew the charter for the first Bank of the United States, Nathan Mayer Rothschild blurted, "Teach those impudent Americans a lesson. Bring them back to colonial status." Shortly after this inflammatory statement, Britain launched the War of 1812, financed by the Rothschild-controlled Bank of England to recolonize the United States and force them back into slavery under the Bank of England. The plan was to plunge the United States into so much debt that the war that they would be forced to accept into I'll read that again. The plan was to plunge the United States into so much debt through the war that they would be forced to accept a new private central bank. And the plan worked. The United States Congress was forced to grant a new charter for yet another private bank that supplied the currency and provided the public with loans at interest, the second Bank of the United States. Once again, private bankers were in control of the nation's money supply and did not care who made the laws or how many British and American soldiers had to die for it. In 1832, U.S. President Andrew Jackson successfully campaigned for his second term as president under the slogan, "Jackson and no bank." Gentlemen, I too have been a close observer of the doings of the Bank of the United States. I have had men watching you for a long time and am convinced that you have used the funds of the bank to schedule into the breadstuffs of the country. When you won, you divided the profits amongst you, and when you lost, you charged it to the bank. You tell me that if I take the deposits from the bank and annul its charter, I shall ruin 10,000 families. That may be true, gentlemen, but that is your sin. Should I let you go on, you will ruin 50,000 families, and that would be my sin. You are a den of vipers and thieves. I have determined to rout you out, and by the eternal, bringing fist down on the table, I will rout you out. A quote from President Andrew Jackson, February 1834. Jackson succeeds in blocking the renewal of the charter for the Second Bank of the United States and went on to become the only president to actually pay off the national debt created by the bankers. Bankers turned to crime and assassination. 3 prominent U.S. presidents had assassination attempts, 2 of them successful. When they became too vocal about the bankers and secret societies, Jackson, Lincoln, and Kennedy all stood up to the unlawful activities of these banker families, but they knew exactly how to deal with the troublesome presidents and hide their crimes successfully. Shortly after President Jackson ended the Second Bank of the United States, there was an attempted assassination that failed when both pistols used by the assassin, Richard Lawrence, failed to fire. When the Confederacy seceded from the United States, the bankers once again saw the opportunity for a rich harvest of debt. They offered to fund Lincoln's efforts to bring the South back into the Union, but President Lincoln refused and instead issued a new government currency that became known as the greenback. This was a direct threat to the wealth and power of the central bankers, who quickly responded. If this mischievous financial policy, which has its origins in North America, shall become endured down to a fixture, then that government will flourish its own money without cost. It will pay off debts and be without debt. It will have all the money necessary to carry on its commerce. It will become prosperous without precedent in the history of the world. The brains and wealth of all countries will go to North America. That country must be destroyed, or it will destroy every monarchy in the globe. This was an article in the London Times responding to Lincoln's decision to issue government greenbacks to finance the Civil War rather than agree to private bankers' loans at 30% interest. It is quite obvious from this article as to who was in control of the London Times. It also provides clear evidence that monarchy or royalty is directly linked to the elite banking families. But the bankers' greed and desire to control the people is insatiable. In 1872, New York bankers sent a letter to every bank in the United States, urging them to fund newspapers that opposed government-issued money such as Lincoln's greenbacks. Dear sir, it is advisable to do all in your power to sustain such prominent daily and weekly newspapers as will oppose the issuing of greenback paper money, and that you also withhold patronage or favors from all applicants who are not willing to oppose the government issue of money. To restore circulation, the government issue of money will be to provide the people with money and will therefore seriously affect your individual profit as bankers and lenders. The banksters continue to manipulate control with statements like this. It will not do to allow the greenback, as it is called, to circulate as money any length of time as we cannot control that. Extracted from Triumphant Plutocracy, the story of the American public life from 1870 to 1920 by Lynn Wheeler. The bankers understood very clearly that money is the perfect tool of control and enslavement, infinitely more clinical than the physical form of slavery whereby the owners had to house and feed their slaves. Money could be applied far more effectively as a cunning tool to propagate slavery among humanity without the masses ever realizing it. They will be so blinded by their perception of freedom and democracy that they will not realize that they are utterly enslaved by those who control the money. Lynn Wheeler gives us another startling example of the bankers' malicious intent in her book, Triumphant Plutocracy. Slavery is likely to be abolished by the war power and chattel slavery destroyed. This I and my European friends are in favor of, for slavery is but the owning of labor and carries with it the care for the laborer, while the European plan, led by England, is for capital to control labor by controlling the wages. This can be done by controlling the money. There is hardly a more sobering statement in recent times to make to ordinary people of the world realize how they are viewed by the banking elite, chattel, and slaves. Right? Chattel is defined by Encarta Dictionary as follows: movable property, an item of personal property that is not not freehold land and is not intangible. Chattels are typically movable property. Chattels personal. Example: furnitures or cars, but may also be interest in property chattels, real, like example leases. The modern banking industry and the family that control it is the largest organized crime syndicate in the world. What makes them infinitely more dangerous than any other cartel is that they perform all their unlawful activity while protected by the laws of our countries that were written to protect them, and the courts and judges that uphold such laws. Or what do you think?
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what's going on. That's exactly what's been going on. That's what got JFK killed.
Yep.
Because JFK was going to take the monetary system, which is your tool, your money, back away from them one more time and give it back to the people of America. Well, these same people that Kevin's reading about couldn't allow that to happen now, could they?
All right. Banks are above the law. Oh, gee, is that the truth, huh?
Tell me about it.
Since 1913, the currency of the United States has been owned and managed by a private corporation of international bankers known as the Federal Reserve System. This group prints Federal Reserve notes and loans them out to the United States Treasury. The American people, blissfully ignorant of this great deception, pay interest to the Federal Reserve banking families for the right to use their money or fancy pieces of paper. This formula is applied in almost all countries by the privately owned central banks. The Federal Reserve banking families can therefore print as much money as they want, creating it out of thin air, giving it to whomever they want secretly with no oversight or input from the United States government. In a television interview with Jim Lehrer, former Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan outlines that the Federal Reserve is an independent agency whose decisions cannot be overruled by any agency or element of the legitimate United States government, and that because of this, the relationship between the Fed and the President of the USA has no effect on the decisions or activities of the Fed. This is the most spine-chilling realization that the Fed is not answerable to anyone. Neither the government nor any of its organs have jurisdiction or control over the Fed. In other words, Fed can do as it pleases without any repercussions or possibility of arrest for its fraudulent actions. And this is what central banks have been doing for centuries. Jim Lehrer quotes, "What is the proper relationship? What should be the proper relationship between a chairman of the Fed and a president of the United States?" Greenspan replies, "Well, first of all, the Federal Reserve is an independent agency, and that means basically that there is no other agency of government which can overrule actions that we take. So as long as that is in place, there is no evidence that the administration, the Congress, or anybody else is requesting that we do things other than what we think is the appropriate thing. Then what the relationships are doesn't matter. And I've had very good relationships with presidents. Funding the oh yeah, funding the wars. The banking families have huge investments with many industries they own around the world. None are more profitable than those who feed the war machine. We can say with comfortable certainty that all the wars in human history have been manipulated by those who control the flow of money. The Rothschild, Rockefeller, Morgan, Harriman, and Wahlberg families were some of the primary funders of the Bolshevik Revolution, World War I, and World War II. Hitler's popular rise to power in Germany sent shockwaves through the banking elite, not because of his military power, but because of his economic policies. Hitler's first financial move was to issue his own state currency, which was not borrowed from private central bankers, and which could be used by the people without paying interest to the bankers. Germany blossomed and quickly began to rebuild its industry. The media called it the German miracle, and Hitler was made Time magazine's Man of the Year in 1938 for the amazing improvement to the life of the German people and explosion of the German industry. The royal banking families did not like this at all, and they used the British Prime Minister Winston Churchill as the messenger of things to come. Let's see, just more quotes from Winston Churchill. Churchill makes it clear that World War II could have been avoided, but it made financial sense to engage in a war to conquer sales markets. The war wasn't only about abolishing fascism, but to conquer sales markets. We could have, if we had intended so, prevented this war from breaking out without doing one shot, but we didn't want to. Winston Churchill to Truman. What I just said there was a quote by Winston Churchill to Truman back in 1946. In the following statement, Churchill admits exactly what the war was about, but at the same time makes a sinister remark that suggests he realized that the bankers were the real culprit who had taken over control from Hitler. Germany's unforgivable crime before World War II was its attempt to loosen its economy out of the world trade system and to build up an independent exchange system from which the world finance couldn't profit anymore. We butchered the wrong pig, Winston Churchill. From 1933, Wall Street bankers had bankrolled the successful coups by both Hitler and Mussolini. Brown Brothers Harriman in New York continued to finance Hitler right up to the day war was declared with Germany, and probably continued the funding in clandestine ways during the war. Although reports claim that there was a fallout between the parties, I cannot imagine any banker shying away from such a lucrative opportunity as funding a war machine. The bankers decided that a fascist dictatorship in the United States based on the one in Italy would be far better for their business interests than Roosevelt's New Deal, which threatened massive wealth redistribution to recapitalize the working and middle class of America. A sinister plot to overthrow the U.S. government was devised by Wall Street tycoons who recruited General Butler to lead the way by installing a Secretary of General Affairs who would be answerable to Wall Street and not the people. General Butler pretended to go along with the scheme, but unexpectedly exposed the plot to Congress. Unfortunately, the Congress was then, as it is now, in the pocket of Wall Street bankers who refused to act. Yeah.
Yeah. You know how easy it would be to beat these people? If the people in this country would just get their heads out of there, you know what, and realize what's really taking place, and just stand up and refuse to cooperate, the people of this world would do the same thing. And then just all turn around and go after these families and take them out and take everything they got away from them, lock them up, and give it back to the people. That's how easy you could stop all this stuff.
Yeah. All right, Hitler and the Bush family empire. A report in The Guardian on Saturday, September 25th, 2004, gives us an insight on how the Bush family profited and created an empire off the back of Hitler's war machine. Here's an edited version of the article. George Bush's grandfather, the late U.S. Senator Prescott Bush, was a director and shareholder of companies that profited from their involvement with the financial backers of Nazi Germany. The Guardian has obtained confirmation from newly discovered files in the U.S. National Archives that a firm of which Prescott Bush was a director was involved in the financial architects of Nazism. The debate over Prescott Bush's behavior had been bubbling under the surface for some time, but the new documents, many of which were only declassified last year, show that even after America had entered the war, and when there was already a significant information about the Nazis' plans and policies, he worked for and profited from companies closely involved with the very German businesses that financed Hitler's rise to power. While there was no suggestion that Prescott Bush was sympathetic to the Nazi cause, the documents reveal that the firm he worked for, Brown Brothers Harriman, acted as a U.S. base for the German industrialist Fritz Theismann, who helped finance Hitler in the 1930s before falling out with him at the end of the decade. The Guardian has seen evidence that shows Bush was the director of the New York-based Union Banking Corporation that represented Theismann's U.S. interests, and he continued to work for the bank after America entered the war. Prescott Bush was also on board of at least one of the companies that formed part of the multinational network of front companies to allow Thyssen to move assets around the world. Thyssen owned the large steel and coal company in Germany and grew rich from Hitler's efforts to rearm between the two world wars. One of the pillars in Thyssen's international corporate web, UBC, worked exclusively for and was owned by Thyssen-controlled bank in the Netherlands.
Yeah,
Three sets of
I'm not trying to interrupt you. I'll keep your spot. We got a call on 11 minutes, so I don't think we're ignoring them.
all right.
206, you're in.
Yeah, I wanted to see how your pathetic life was going with no education, no woman, or no anything.
Oh, well, that's fine. My pathetic life's going pretty good as you're kicked out of the show. Go on, Kevin.
Banksters assassinate JFK. When President John F. Kennedy wrote and signed Executive Order 11110 on the 4th of June 1963, which ordered the U.S. Treasury to issue a new public currency, the United States notes, he essentially signed his own death warrant. Kennedy's United States notes were not borrowed from the Federal Reserve private bankers, but were created by the U.S. government and backed by the silver stockpiles held by the U.S. government. Some $4.5 billion went into public circulation, reducing the interest payments on the Federal Reserve and loosening its control over the nation. 5 months later, JFK was assassinated in Dallas, Texas, and his United States notes were pulled from circulation almost immediately and destroyed. John K. McCloy, who was then the president of Chase Manhattan Bank and president of the World Bank, was appointed to the Warren Commission to make certain that the banking connection behind the assassination was well concealed from the public. The truth is that the U.S. government, as do many other governments, still has the power under its constitution to issue a debt-free money, but the control of the banksters is so severe that our governments are not doing what is best for the people. An example of this hit mainstream media for weeks in the U.S. during January 2013, when it was discovered that a loophole could allow the entire U.S. debt to be paid off with a single platinum coin. This coin, dubbed the $1 trillion coin, proved beyond any doubt that the U.S. government had the means and opportunity to settle the country's debts. This was the first time that mainstream media offered their viewers a glimpse of the enormity of the fiat currency deception. This was only a small taste of what the bankers are capable of and how they have manipulated our world for a very long time. It seems that it's up to us, the people, to do something about it. Yeah, ain't that the truth?
Yeah. And the sad thing about that is it is up to us, the people, okay? And that's really what it comes down to. That's why people that are going in the military, they're manipulated from the time they're in high school. And they have recruiters that go around to the high schools. To do what? To get them into the military. Okay? And, and this is why, and a few people get mad at me and I say, we don't need a military. You don't need government. You don't need military. And people get mad at me for that. And they say, well, we need military. But not what for? Or to defend ourselves. And I says, against what? Your ability to grow up?
Yeah. All right, what else? All right.
This is some actually really good stuff you got here in this book. This person really knows what they're talking about.
Yeah. All right. Where can I go now? All right, I guess I'll, let's see, should I read this part or? Okay, I'll go here. The world in protest. There has never been a time like the present when the entire world is rapidly rising up in protest against the banksters and the political regimes that increasingly curtail the freedom of their people. By the end of 2012, there were massive protests in virtually every country and thousands of cities all over the world, sparked mainly by the Occupy Wall Street initiative. This caused many more protests around the world to flare up against a wide range of burning issues that were affecting people's lives. It is an indication that, in truth, there is very little being done by the governments of the world to serve the people who elected them. Based on the extent of these actions, it is estimated that more than 10 million people around the world were involved in protests between 2010 and at the end of 2012. As expected, the mainstream media did not report on most of these protests, but rather did their best to play it all down and treat the protesters with the usual ridicule that we have become accustomed to. The Occupy Wall Street protest started on September 17, 2011 in Zuccotti Park, New York. By the end of 2011, there have been more than 1,000 Occupy protests around the world. The main issues raised by Occupy Wall Street were social and economic inequality, greed, corruption, and the perceived undue influence of corporations on government, particularly from the financial service sector. It has become evident to millions that corporations were the enemies of the people, spearheaded and supported by the banks and the unlawful legal system. The Occupy Wall Street slogan claims that we are the 99%. The Ubuntu movement agrees with this wholeheartedly and reminds people to take this to heart and not be confused, baffled, or intimidated by the 1% that has assumed control of our planet. The only constant in this universe is change, and so will the draconian regime that has enslaved the 99%. Many believe that the so-called upper class is part of the 1%. It should be stressed that the upper class is not the highest class of earners, because even if people are perceived to be extremely wealthy, they mostly do not fall into the 1%, and in most cases should not be demonized. The 1% is a very exclusive club that remains invisible and untouchable to the global population. Protesters were forced out of Zuccotti Park in November the 15th, 2011. After several unsuccessful attempts to reoccupy the original location, protesters turned their focus to occupying banks, corporate headquarters, board meetings, college and university campuses. The secret government agencies will stop at nothing to spy on its people and use whatever measures to eliminate troublemakers. If they could eliminate Lincoln and JFK, they can do it to anyone. But this only causes more trouble for them in the long run. And so the government made sure that it gathered as much information about the leaders of Occupy Wall Street in the event that they had a potential case of treason or terrorism on which to arrest people to stand up for their rights and the rights of others. The proof of this was delivered on December 29, 2012 by Naomi Wolf of the Guardian newspaper, who provided a U.S. government with documents which revealed that the FBI and DHS had monitored Occupy Wall Street through their Joint Terrorism Task Force, despite labeling it a peaceful movement. While we may see it as our right to protest, they see it as a potential threat to the system, a system designed to destroy anything that threatens its own survival. By the time 2012 came to a close, senior stockbrokers, bank executives like Greg Smith, and senior World Bank insiders like Karen Hudez had spilled the beans on countless criminal activities by the global banking elite. Now, the next few pages actually lists links to websites that backs up. That pretty much talks about what I just said there.
Right. Well, what you're talking about there is true, and if it wasn't for the rise of the internet to begin with, the bankers would have stayed hidden. Because before the internet came along, nobody knew about the bankers, period. Everybody looked at their puppet leaders.
Yep. All right. Let's find out. All right. Ubuntu contributionism, where everyone contributes their natural talents or acquired skills for the greater benefit of all in their community. The beauty of contributionism lies in its simplicity. But because the system is so simple, every bone in our indoctrinated bodies instantly rebels against it, and we tell ourselves that it cannot be so simple, otherwise it would have already been done. Okay. 6,000 years of enslavement by money is tough to erase in a flash. So keep your mind completely open, not just half open, and be prepared to entertain new ideas that are completely alien to a sick capitalist society filled with poisoned minds and poisoned bodies that desperately need to find a cure. Our inalienable rights, human rights. We, the people, have appointed the politicians as our servants to do the best they can for us, the people. But the moment that they are elected, they seem to forget this and start doing as they please, not delivering to the people what the people want. There are always a million excuses. The net result is that the government is not serving the people. The politicians and the government have failed us dramatically on every level. They have betrayed the dreams of millions who include elders of integrity like Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King, William Wallace, John Lennon, and many others who dedicated their lives to our freedom. We are all born free on this planet as living, breathing human beings with inalienable rights that nobody may take from us. And yet, through a great deception, this is not the case. All of our rights are desecrated from the moment our umbilical cord is cut and we take our very first breath. I have to draw a distinction between rights of human beings and the rights of fictional entities that are created by birth certificates and represented by identity documents and other official papers that lead people to believe that they are a name on a piece of paper or an ID number. Such entities are known as the juristic persons in legal terms and present pieces of paper, not flesh and blood human beings. This is a very important concept to understand. Look at your birth certificate and ask yourself these questions. Were you old enough to consent to the documents? Did you sign the documents? Whose company name appears on the documents? Which company official signed the documents? Who gave the company permission to create a certificate of ownership over you at birth? Remember that a certificate indicates ownership, and somebody now claims to have ownership over you through your birth certificate. So let me remind you of our most important inalienable rights, God-given rights. We are all born free as living, breathing human beings of flesh and blood and infinite soul with inalienable rights. Our freedom is not our rights. It is a gift from the divine creator to each and every one of us, which nobody may violate or challenge in any way. No one, no government, and no corporation may restrict our individual freedom in any way. Within these rights, there is a set of 3 common law principles that have stood the test of time and continue to present a foundation of integrity and honor among humanity. These are simply called common law. Number 1, do not kill or harm others. Number 2, do not steal or take what is not yours. Number 3, conduct yourself honorably in all that you do and say. These common law principles are the foundation of all other laws and guidelines we choose to create for our society. If we abide by these, the following rights become enshrined in our culture and allow every human being to live freely or as part of a community of their choice. The planet and its riches are there to be used by everyone, not for personal gain or the exploitation of others, but for the benefit of everyone in every community and the benefit of all of humanity. Number 1, the country is there for its people. Number 2, I'll just say no. I'll just forget the numbers. The country is there for its people. The land is there for its people. The water is there for the people. The forests are there for the people. The rivers and lakes are there for the people. The gold, the platinum, the diamonds, chrome, copper, iron, uranium, tin, aluminum, and all other minerals on the ground are there for the people. The air and the airwaves are there for the people. Everything that grows on the land is there for the people. The beaches, the mountains, and the skies above are there for the people. The animals do not belong to us or anyone else. They belong to the planet, and we are their custodians and protectors. Knowledge and wisdom is to be shared by those who attain it with everyone, so that everyone can benefit from the collective wisdom. These things do not belong to politicians, the governments, or any corporation that has unlawfully laid claim to it. Wow, all that.
Well, that is true. That is very true. If you go back to the beginning when I talked about the water, you have people right now that's wanting to claim all water rights to themselves. They're really wanting to take over every source of water in the whole world and claim it for themselves. And that's very deadly because, to survive on this planet, the 2 things that humans must have is food and water. And if you allow some evil entity to claim ownership over food and water, they literally have your life in their hands, and that applies to everybody.
Yeah. All right. course, the next chapter goes through the, countries are registered as corporations. That's something that a lot of people don't realize. Countries are corporations. They're not actually countries, so all that stuff.
Yeah, that's correct.
All right. The needs of society. Let us be really honest and identify the things that we truly need as living, breathing human beings to live in abundance on this planet. Just follow a basic logic of the most important stuff: food, water, love, friendship, clothing, shelter, fire. Those are the obvious things. But let's think more freely about it and look around you, where you are at the moment. What else do you need? Tables, chairs, lamps, fridges, paper, pens, books, knives, forks, technology, phones, computers, electricity, shoes, pillows, blankets, reading glasses, cars, lawnmowers, hose pipes, basins, cupboards, batteries, cups, plates, fans, trees, chickens, cows, goats, plants, seeds, bicycles, prams, mattresses, towels, hairbrushes, bookshelves, bottles, carpets, tiles, taps, hammers, nails, screws, timber, bricks, paint. The list is virtually endless. What is not on this list is what we do not need in our lives or to survive. Money.
That's correct. That's correct.
Yep. Once we get over the addiction of money and how it controls our lives, we realize that money does nothing. People do. Money is the thing that stands between people and what they need and what they want to do. It is the hurdle to progress and the obstacle to human achievement. Money does absolutely nothing. People do everything. That's one of Michael Tellinger's favorite saying right there. Uh, People plant the seeds, grow the food, build the bridges, solve mathematical equations, build the rockets, and design free energy devices. Build machines to ease our labor, make clothes and shoes, hold and comfort each other in times of need. People do everything and will continue to do if and will continue to do so infinitely if were no restrictions on them. People are holders of deep emotion and people are capable of infinite love. Money does nothing. It is the hurdle to all progress and the absolute tool of control and enslavement of the human race. The space shuttle missions have been stopped not because there is no one to fly them or no one who wants to explore space, but because apparently there's not enough money. But in the same breath, the Wall Street banksters get bailed out for trillions that could have been spent on amazing projects for the benefit of humanity. The size of the global casino the bankers play in is over $1 quadrillion, 20 times bigger than the GDP of the entire planet. Yet there is not enough money. Look around you at the state of disrepair in our towns and cities. Everything seems to be broken, and it takes forever to get fixed or replaced. Poverty and hunger everywhere, not because there are no people to deal with the problems, but because there is not enough money. It is the main excuse and topic of debate by politicians everywhere, talking about the money and how the little bit of money that there is should be put to use to benefit the people. But somehow it is never enough to deal with our needs and our Problems. Somehow the politicians can never get it right, and we never quite get what we want and what we need. Money always gets in the way of our needs and progress. But the bankers never have any problems. Even when their banks go belly up, they get bailed out. They get saved, while millions of people are left stranded and homeless and hungry with no one to save them. The bankers they always get saved. I trust that by now you get the message loud and clear. The banksters rule the world, and money is their weapon.
And that is true. That is so true. You can't even like what I was talking about at the beginning of the show. That is the problem. I mean, even in the truther community, how many people do you see all over the place that they have to have money to spread the truth? They have to have money to talk about something that's going to affect their life if they don't change
Yeah, don't forget to donate. I have a Patreon account, right?
it. That's it. That's it. Yeah, don't forget to donate to me because I need some more of the tool, the tool, the tool. How about you need to get off your ass and realize what's really going on and stop using money? and all work together.
Yeah. The solutions are simple. Money is the problem. Most of us have looked at the problems we face as humanity, and many of us have come up with possible solutions to these problems. There are billions of skilled people with all the expertise necessary to solve these problems that range from the small mundane like garbage removal and recycling to the more specific ideas like free energy. The fact of the matter is that the solutions to our problems are very simple, but somehow the politicians in our governments can never get it right. When they do attempt to solve our problems, it is always in some way linked to a hidden agenda that benefits someone somewhere and is not really done in full integrity to serve the people. Uh, They debate it for weeks and months behind closed doors and allocate budgets that get misappropriated, which is just a fancy word for stolen or lost, while our problems keep multiplying. That is because politicians are not experts in solving problems. They are experts in making promises and promoting the agendas of their political parties and the banksters that fund them. Our scientists, engineers, farmers, and ordinary people have the answers and knowledge to solve all our problems and provide a platform for rapid advancement. Our governments and politicians do not. If we have a food crisis, let the farmers solve it. Let the engineers deal with engineering problems and the scientists deal with scientific solutions. Let the teachers come up with creative ideas for learning and water experts to provide clean, energized water for everyone. Because the answers to our problems as the human race are simple, we just have to give it to the people who are passionate and have the skills to do it. But most of the great scientists or researchers work for universities, research labs, or institutions that belong to large corporations who in turn are funded by the bankers. Their research is restricted to the areas of interest that benefit the corporations, and therefore we hardly ever hear about groundbreaking discoveries. What we do hear repeatedly is how new breakthrough research has brought us yet another step closer to finding a cure for cancer. Sound familiar?
Oh, what a joke!
Or some other similar drivel. This is all cleverly constructed propaganda to keep the flame of hope alive amongst humanity while slaving away another day, believing that our leaders are doing the best they can for us. All major new discoveries are hidden from sight unless they can be controlled for profit. Scientists should not work for governments with agendas. Independently funded research institutions are the only way to make real breakthroughs that will reach the people of the world to be converted into devices or technology or be applied in ways that benefit the people. The current system of research only serves those who keep the wool pulled firmly over our eyes. All right. Yeah.
Well, I can add something to that because it's so true.
Right.
There was a man who invented a device that goes on your automobile, and you switch the tank out for a different tank, and it actually pulled hydrogen out of the water. So you could use this device in any creek, any stream, any river, any ocean. Didn't matter where you got your water source because all water has hydrogen in it. And the combustion motor ran just as good as if it was running on gasoline. Okay, just as efficient, just as good, no difference. Okay, and of course the powers to be, of course, had to try to buy this invention from this person to put a hope to it. When the person wouldn't sell the patent to him, they made sure he had a sudden accident, died. Okay, and then because it had came out, people was knowing about it, and a few people had it. They went ahead and held some seminars around this country, and they had these seminars. And what they did is they manipulated it. They charged people to come in, so they made some of the tool. That's right. And then they fed you propaganda. They told you that this device wasn't foolproof, that you still had to have their gasoline, which was a complete joke and a complete lie to hide the actual truth from the people.
All right. Um, Money is the hurdle to all progress. Money is a synthetically created tool of absolute control. Money stops the natural flow of energy, energy that flows through every living, breathing human being. It is insane to say that money makes the world go round. The world goes around all on its own. I'm gonna piss off some flat earthers with that, but I don't really care. To illustrate the true nature of money, take a look at take a look at some of its effects. All our lives revolve around chasing money. It is a driving force in our world today that controls everything. Most of the energy we use daily is in the pursuit of money. Money is the cause of most crimes. Money causes families to fall apart. Money drives people to commit suicide and kill their families. Money is the hurdle to all progress. It stops the natural flow of energy. Money causes gross separation and segregation in society. It is the cause for most of the misery on earth. Money leads to absolute power and control. Therefore, money has been the cause of most conflict and war in the world. Money feeds the ego. Money does nothing. People do everything. Money is the primary cause of the seven deadly sins: gluttony, greed, envy, pride, lust, wrath, and sloth. In hindsight, it seems that the so-called seven deadly sins must have been created because of the presence of money in the world, not the other way around. Justification of money. In spite of all the ugly aspects of money, there are still those who desperately try to find excuses for money, try to justify its existence. They say things like, money itself is not evil, it is just a form of exchange, and we have made it evil. They say that it is not money that is evil, but the love of money that is the problem with humanity. They say that we just need to find a form of new and lawful money, and everything will be fine. All those are just excuses made by those who have not yet truly woken up to the dark side of money and are subconsciously addicted to it, thinking that they can somehow still benefit from it, even if it changes its stripes. I need to imprint this in your heart as firmly as possible. It is not the love of money that causes our strife. It is the pure presence of money, all of our misery. And to find the source of all our problems, all we have to do is follow the money. It is unquestionably, it always unquestionably leads to the primary source of, of all our strife on planet Earth. Thinking that money will bring us happiness is as insane as saying that fighting for peace will bring us peace, and which is what we have apparently been doing for thousands of years. Just like peace can never be attained through violence or conflict, money can never become a benefit to society because of what it inherently is, a tool of control that causes division among humanity. Those that seek excuses for money still suffer from the most common side effect that many of us have not yet diagnosed: fear. And suddenly we face one of the most powerful subconscious trappings that holds so many of us back from taking chances in life: fear. We live in a world where fear is the primal force that shapes our decisions and one of the most difficult hurdles to cross if we want to escape our economic enslavement. We seem to fear everything: fear of death, disease, losing our jobs, fear of God, punishment, fear of our neighbors, being robbed, having a car accident, fear of authority, arrest, choking, drowning, fear of failure. We fear so much that we forget to enjoy and cherish life. This fear tactic is used very skillfully by the global media to control the masses and prevent them from stepping out of line. Banks and insurance companies use fear extremely successfully as part of their marketing campaigns. What if you have an accident? How will you pay for it? Do you have enough hospital insurance? Have you saved enough for your retirement? How will your children pay for their schooling? The brainwashing is endless. Fear is cleverly imprinted in our subconscious minds and constantly forced down our throats on the daily news, with constant exposure to war, violence, murder, poverty, homelessness, hunger, shortages, scarcity, financial instability, etc. There's no good news on television, yet we are drawn to it like flies, complaining and moaning about our miserable lives. Remember, it's called programming. Even the TV programs have those undertones on the many reality shows and game shows that fill the participants with hope, but more often than not paralyze them with fear of losing.
Don't you like how they call it TV programs? Programs?
Yeah.
Programs? Yeah. It's what I've been trying to tell people all along. Human beings are very programmable, especially from the time they're a child, even after they're an adult. and they've been using many different programs to program us. They've done a wonderful job, haven't they?
Oh yeah. All right. Ubuntu and Unity. The Ubuntu contributionism philosophy is largely based on the ancient tribal structures of the African people and many other native tribes of the world, with adaptations for our times and people who accustomed to certain levels of technology of today. For thousands of years, the native people of the world lived in united tribal communities in harmony with Mother Earth. But our society has been segregated and separated on so many levels that we hardly understand the word unity anymore. The Ubuntu model will break down the overcrowded urban slum areas, allowing people to recreate a unified society consisting of smaller, harmonious communities where people can live by choice rather than forced into economic dependency and servitude. The Ubuntu model restores this harmonious balance between the people and the land, providing abundance for all because it is an environment which allows its people to. Wait, let's read that again. Because it is an environment which allows its people to all contribute their natural talents and acquired skills to the greater benefit of everyone in the community. An environment where their talents are celebrated and supported on every level, at every age. This applies to all areas of our society, from science, technology, agriculture, manufacture, health, education, housing, to every other area that is not deemed to be financially viable under the present capitalistic system. Wow. Any thoughts there?
Well, that's exactly what we need. I mean, I think this guy here's got a really great idea. I mean, it's a really great idea. What can I say? I mean, we got to do away with money, period. We got to do away with leaders. We got to do away with all the division. People need to work together for the good of everybody. And
Yep.
not because you got personal selfish gain for your own self, but for the good of everybody. Some people can't understand that because some people, well, it's in the DNA.
Or the programming, you know.
I would say more the programming than the DNA.
Yeah.
But what can I say? There's not a lot I can do about what has taken place, but I can tell you this. This is right up my alley because this is exactly what I feel and what I've always thought. And I mean, it's so nice. I'm so happy that Kevin has found this. I really am.
Yeah. All right. Utopia blocked by a poisoned mind. It is at this point that many people hit the wall of resistance and simply cannot imagine a world without money. Once again, this is simply an indication of how poisoned our minds have become. Many of us cannot even allow ourselves the freedom to imagine what the world would be like without money. A world in which humanity is truly free, no longer enslaved by the invisible royal political elite, a world where money cannot be used to manipulate, bribe, influence, or kill for. A complete reshuffling of priorities, where honor and integrity are the foundation of each community, where everyone knows everyone else and respects them for their contribution to the community, where arts and culture are the infinite backdrop that aids everyone to a rapid rise in consciousness, where children are given absolute freedom to pursue their God given talents as the future contribution to their community, where gluttony, greed, or envy knows no place because everyone has everything they need. A world where money is as undesirable as a terminal disease, where our infinite diversity and cooperative unity create abundance for the whole of humanity beyond our wildest imagination. A world that so many dream of and yet so few are brave enough to enter. A world without money, a new social structure. Some people think that living without money is like going back to the dark ages or living in caves. The truth is that without money, we actually achieve the complete opposite. We unleash unbridled exploitation, scientific knowledge, sharing the most advanced discoveries in technology, free energy, engineering, design, construction, and every other area of life. By removing money, we remove all obstacles to progress in every sector and release the human spirit to create and discover without limitations. Once we embrace this simple philosophy, we create the space for our visions to become a reality, where people can follow their natural talents or acquired skills and love every moment of every day, living a truly fulfilled life, the kind of lives we are meant to live as part of this divine creation. Whether we are farmers, scientists, shoemakers, civil engineers, or anything else we choose, the positive energy generated by these conditions is unimaginable to us at present and a great activator of the law of attraction. The miracle cure. The immediate benefits in a world without money are simply astonishing as all the ugly aspects of life miraculously disappear. The moment we remove money from our lives and from the system, everything changes for the better almost immediately. No crime, no hunger, no homelessness, no greed, no gluttony, no extortion, no hoarding, no accounts, no debts, no hierarchy, no control, no obstacles of any kind of to any kind of progress. Now, this is not a utopia, but the natural order of things, and in a flash, the family of human beings joins everything else in creation that coexists without money. Now, questions and doubts. It is at this point. It is at this point that the same set of questions usually start to sound from the crowd. It is truly remarkable how we all seem to think alike and how we have been equally programmed to hit the same set of hurdles and ask virtually the same questions. While some believe it is a result of human nature that we ask the same questions, I suggest it is a sobering indication that our education system has brainwashed us all equally. I can say this in pure honesty because these are the same questions that I had to deal with in the early stages of my exploration of a utopian world without money. Therefore, when someone asks a specific question, I have a very vivid sense of the level they are at in processing the new philosophy because I have had to work through all those same levels myself. Here are the 8 most frequently asked questions and comments. Human nature won't allow this to happen. People are inherently lazy. Who's going to shovel the crap? If everything is free, I'll just sit on my ass and do nothing, and I want people to bring me whatever I need. Great. If everything is free, I want 50 Ferraris and 20 mansions. How are we going to pay for things? Does this mean we're going back to the Dark Ages, living in caves? Is this a lawless society? Who makes the rules? Why should I do something I don't like, and why should I give up everything I've worked so hard for? Well, the answer is at the FAQs. Oh my God. Okay. Let me put your mind at ease. As part of my own attempt to thoroughly break down the contributionism system, and come to grips with all its components, I've had to challenge myself to find answers to many of these questions, like these, and many sectors of society as I could think of. To find the answers, we need to repeat the 5 fundamental aspects of contributionism, which are no money, no barter, no trade, no value attached to anything which makes it valuable than anything else, because all of our contributions have to be respected and accepted equally valuable. Everyone contributes to their natural talents or acquired skills for the greater benefit of all in their community. This is not a utopia. It is a natural order of things that cannot be corrupted or exploited by money. I call it a self-correcting system because all the decisions are made by the people through their council of elders who make the final call on the implementation of the will of the people on a daily basis. Nobody in the cycle can be corrupted or bribed by money because money does not exist. Everything is implemented for the benefit of the people and the community, not for the benefit of individuals at the expense of others. So if something is implemented and for some reason it turns out to be detrimental to some other community, it can be corrected immediately, within hours, days, or weeks by the people in the Council of Elders. Okay,
I think you've done a really good job here, Kevin.
Yeah.
And I think you've gotten the point across. What I would suggest that you do now, okay, is go ahead and tell people what the book is, where they can buy this book.
It's called Ubuntu contributionism, and unfortunately, you'd be very lucky to find this in a bookstore right now. I had to order this from the Ubuntu website.
Oh, okay.
Well, you know, you can also find it on Amazon or eBay. You know.
Okay. Well, I guess we can do that, and then what I'm going to do is we'll probably go ahead and end the show here in a couple of minutes. But what I'm going to do is this: I'm going to go ahead and download this and post this up for you tomorrow.
Right.
So this show will be up on YouTube for you, and then if you want to copy it over your channel, you can. And then maybe you can put a couple of links or whatever underneath it, to where people actually go purchase the book.
Right.
Because I think that you've done an outstanding job. I think this is something that people need to hear. I'm totally aboard with this all the way. This guy is totally right, and I know Kevin's aboard with this. And this is just something. It's something we need. It's something that people need to really wake up and realize that we actually need. Because if we can accomplish this, we can end everything. We can end the wars. We can take the power structure away from these people. Of course, there's going to be some fighting because the corruption's not going to want this, regardless of what.
Oh,
and
yeah.
maybe, and maybe that's why this book's not readily available in bookstores, because this is something the powers don't want, because this removes them from there being a god over somebody else when they're not.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah. But I think this is definitely what this world needs, because I've always said the only reason this world's not a good place and a fair place is because we don't want that. And for all the people who dreamed and says they do want that, well, if you want that, here it is. This is your answer. This is the true answer. Okay, and to get that, the people are going to realize that, and they're going to have to wake up to this and want this themselves. And once enough people want this themselves and striving and walking for this themselves, we could turn this around and we can remove these bankers from the positions they're in. We can do away with corrupt governments. We can do away with all the corruptions, the wars. We can do away with it all.
Yeah.
And I think everybody would be happy if this really happened. The only people who can be happy are the selfish and the greedy.
Yeah, and I will add this though: there are some towns that are attempting this right now. They're towns that you've never even heard of, but they're attempting to do this, and yeah, you know.
Yeah, so but that's what I'm going to go ahead and do, and I highly appreciate you being here, Kevin.
Right.
Okay, I did hear from Jerry.
Huh.
Of course, it was a little late. We had like 36 minutes left of the show, and he was trying to call me on Skype. But I did get a couple words in with him, and Jerry was out with a friend, lost track of what the day was and what time it was. And by the time I said I'm in radio show, it dawned on him what the day was, and he was, oh no, I can't believe I've done this. But at least I know he's okay. That was my big thing, is that he's okay.
Yeah.
Because I would hate for something bad to happen to him. So, but I'm gonna go ahead and end that for you, and I really appreciate Kevin being up here tonight. And
Right.
this is something I'm happy that he brought to this show, because this needs to be heard. So I'm gonna do that. You're gonna find this up on my channel tomorrow, and Kevin can go ahead if he wants to mirror it over on his channel, because it's his show. This is Kevin's show tonight, by God.
Yeah.
So, thank you, Kevin. I appreciate it.
All right. See you guys later.
Yep. You all take care.